Welcome to Pour Over Marketing. I'm Rob Southgate. All right, we're here again, and I'm a little more awake than I was last time, although I had a horrendous night's sleep. That happens. Everybody has that. Overheated, things like that. So my energy might be a little bit low to get us started, but I am definitely more awake than I was the last one when we started it. So I can see we got somebody in here, which is cool. I'm hoping we get a lot of questions today. I've been vamping a lot on this show, and my favorite part of this show was when we started it and we would just get in conversation. The other thing is, if you have a question, if you want to jump on and join me, let me know. Send me a message on here on the chat. And if you're like, hey, can I come on and ask a question, or I want to share a thought or whatever, let me know, and I'll send you the link and invite you on, and we will do a split screen. It's the holidays. Everybody should be jumping in and having a good time with this, right? Okay. So I've had a million thoughts today, and I got to see which one I want to start with. I think probably the biggest thing is we're going to go back to an idea that we've done before, but that's marketing, right? Everything old is new again. And that's the idea of going back and fine-tuning what you're doing. Hey, I'm not great at it either. It's a nonstop job. It's a nonstop effort to continually go back, look at what you're doing, make some changes, update things, optimize things. It's part of it, you could say, is, the algorithms change, or what's going on as far as interest changes, and you've got to adapt to that. When we did internet, wow. See, I told you I'm a little tired. Integrated Marketing Palooza, we talked about how you tie everything together, but one important aspect of that is getting your ducks in a row. So that's what I want to talk about. I did a deep dive at one point this week where I went to subscribe to newsletters. I had a list of people that I was going to subscribe to, that I had their social medias, I had their newsletters, I had their websites. I was like, you know what? I'm going to subscribe to every one of these so that I can watch what they're doing, so I can get ideas, because really that's how you do it. You see what others are doing, you put it in a blender and you create your own. That's not just marketing, that's business, right? Even when you find a blue ocean where you go, nobody's doing this, somebody's doing something. It's not just out of thin air. You can look at what other people are doing and, once again, put them in the blender and adapt to what you're doing. We talk about that on here a lot when I talk about, like, how do you, like, I did that video this week about the card detailing, how to make a video promoting your Black Friday weekend. And obviously, not all of you guys are card detailers. You have your own entrepreneurial efforts. You have your own business or brand that you are putting out there. Once again, brand you could be just the brand. Just like, hey, I want people to see me in a certain light and maybe hire me for something, or know what I do, or I just love to share and make the world a better place, right? That's all brand you. And when I did that video about the car detailing, the idea is to take that, throw it in the blender, and say, how does it apply to me? How do I make something out of what I do that way? If you didn't, okay, which I know a lot of you didn't, because I didn't get anything from people showing me what they did. There were a lot of viewers, but not a lot of people sending it in. That's okay. I didn't do it either. Everything takes time, and you have to pick and choose which things you're going to do. The key is to not do nothing, right? You cannot do nothing. You have to be doing something every day. Maeve last night was telling me she was all excited. She watched the Martha Stewart documentary that's on Netflix. Not that she's this like enormous Martha Stewart fan or was excited by what she was by the decorating and that, even though she did like it. What she was excited by was things like Martha Stewart said, I learn something new every day. I make myself learn something new every day. That excited her. And you know what? That's what we're talking about here. If you learn something new every day, you can't possibly implement all the things you've learned. You cannot. But you now have choices. You can now pick and choose. So, back to it, back to optimizing. So I had to go through this list. And my intention was literally to see what people were doing on their newsletters. So I thought, I'm going to subscribe from this one account. So all I get in this one account are newsletters, lots of newsletters. And I can look at them and I can see what they're doing. And if it's somebody that I have contact with, maybe I can make suggestions. If it's not, at least I'm getting ideas, right? And in that, though, I noticed a lot. First of all, let's say I had a list of 30 newsletters where it had all their socials, their website, and their newsletter. The ones that didn't say yes, they had a newsletter, I went to their website to see, do they have a newsletter? There were a bunch of them that did. Okay, so you've not updated your information to let people know you have a newsletter, but it's on your website. That's great. When I looked through that, through the websites, and I did go to every single one of them, what I noticed was the placement of where they tell people to follow their newsletter was all over the place. How they did it was all over the place. I would say a good third of the ones that said they had a website, the website links were broken. I clicked on it and it said under construction or doesn't exist. And it's like, well, but you have that domain. You obviously had something there at some point. Just put up a landing page, right? And if you want them to sign up for your newsletter, which you should, if you go to MailChimp, you can get code that you pop on there and it makes a pop-up that says, hey, join my newsletter. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. It could be real basic stuff, right? So I noticed that for the ones that had websites, there were a couple of them that it was super easy to find their newsletter. Places I found them. The most effective was up in the top bar. It said, home, bio, whatever, newsletter, or subscribe to my newsletter. It's right there. First thing I saw. My eyes went right to it. Bam. Other people placed it like after this image that's at the top, this big image that's at the top. They placed it right here. Okay. That worked because I saw it very quickly. I saw, they want me to subscribe to their newsletter. Their goal is to get me to subscribe to their newsletter. There it is. Boom. Other people, like what I do, had pop-ups. Now, I only saw a few of those. Pop-ups are super effective. They can be super annoying, too, so you got to be careful with them. But if you go to the Southgate Media Group webpage, if you're a new user that hasn't been there from that IP that you're on, if you're a new user and you go there, after I think it's 3 seconds or 5 seconds, a pop-up comes up, says, hey, join our newsletter. Here's what you get. Cool. Sign in. Boom. You're signed up. You'll get an email right after that says, did you really intend to join our newsletter? It's great. I like those. I like those 3 placements. What I didn't like was there were people that literally would have a paragraph, like their head paragraph, and in it would be a highlighted thing. Oh, and while you're here, you can join my newsletter. Well, that's just text. I had to read everything to find where it said join my newsletter. Some of those were broken links when I clicked on them. It didn't go anywhere. Some of the things that said join my newsletter, I clicked on, even the ones up in the top and the underneath did the same thing. They went to broken links. It's like, well, if you've got a broken link, your part of your optimization, part of your due diligence as a marketer, creator, is to check those things. Even when I put out a newsletter, I try to click on the links that I've provided to make sure Did they go where I wanted them to? Does it look right? Mistakes happen, right? And when you send a newsletter out, you send it out, it's out in the universe. Website, you can go back, I mean, in real time, you can go back and change it. Ooh, that's the wrong link. Or I must have left a letter out. Or, oh, the link I'm going to is dead. Right? I didn't like when it was in the text. I found it really difficult. I had to read a lot, and there were some that it was elusive. I knew they had a newsletter because in another place I subscribed to it, and I was like, no, I want them all here. But finding it was tricky. It was buried. Then other people put it way at the bottom. I think they think, oh, that's like, you've read my thing, you like it. Now you're interested and you want to subscribe to my newsletter. Well, the brain doesn't really work that way. If your goal is to get them to subscribe to your newsletter, you got to get it right up front. You got to get right there, make a button, something, and make sure you add a little value to it. The other thing I noticed, so that was a big one. That was a big one. And I was like, wow, I wish I could tell every one of these people, here are some simple things to do some maintenance on it. The other thing I noticed was the social media, same thing. There was one person in particular that I just talked to who went on this rant about not wanting to be on Twitter X anymore. I understand. But they were really upset about it. They're like, yeah, I pulled everything off. I haven't been on in 6 months. It's dead. Yet, when you go to their website, it says Facebook, Twitter, and it's the old logo for Twitter, Instagram. I'm like, then when you click on it, it goes to a Twitter account. So you left it, but you didn't. It's still there, but you're not doing anything on it. Well, your fan doesn't know that. You don't have anything about there for that. So now, what if you have that fan that only uses Twitter? Now, granted, if you took that thing off, they're going to know there's no Twitter. But they don't know that. I didn't know it. I clicked on it, and boom, it took me to your Twitter account. That should be gone. It should be taken off the page. If you're not going to use Twitter, get it off the page. Update. Make those changes. If you have an old logo, change the logo. You're not protesting and saying, I'm going to keep that old Twitter bird because that's what I liked. But that doesn't exist anymore. There's no protest. Nobody is falling on deaf ears. You want to update where you can. Now, have I done a great job? No, I've got 1 million pages because of our podcast network that I have to go through someday, but taking the time to do that is time consuming. But I would love to delete, because we don't use Twitter anymore. Get it all off of there. When I say I was noticing this, I was noticing it in myself too. I was noticing where my mistakes are. We all need to do this, though. We need to go through our stuff and make sure that we're presenting exactly what we want to present and being effective with it, making sure your links are right, making sure you've got updated logos, making sure that you understand where people are looking. There are hot zones on a website. When you go to a new website, you go to my website, you only scroll so far down unless you're really interested and it's pulling you down. It's why it used to be that like pages would be scroll, forever pages. Now they're not. Technically, if you were to break it into pages, like page length, they're like 2 pages. Then it takes you somewhere else. Longer ones seem ridiculous. You start scrolling down and you're like, why didn't I just have something to click to go see your artwork, your books, your music? You can have drop-down tabs at the top. So if you say media, and then you put your mouse over it, your cursor, and it pulls the thing down and it says music, podcast, blank, blank. Great. It's all filed. It's all put in proper places. Look at your stuff. Do you have a web page? If you don't have a web page, I hope you're realizing that is an important piece of the puzzle. And there are a lot of things you have to think about when you do it. If you don't have a newsletter, I hit on this all the time. You should have a newsletter, or at least a blog with a MailChimp account that when you write on your blog, you can send it out through MailChimp. It's not a traditional newsletter, but you know what? That's okay too. It's that contact that you're looking for. That my thoughts are here, they go out, and it's a different way than I express myself other ways, which connects with the audience in a different way and grows your audience. Another thing I noticed, well, okay, so social media, let's go back to that. I noticed with social media that there were old logos, there were broken links, there were also not updated things. So like one artist I know who I joined Blue Sky this week. I noticed this artist. I went on, saw this artist on there. Woo, followed them. They're a friend of mine. They're awesome. When I went and I did this and I looked at their page, first of all, they had a lot of those little ticky-tack things, kind of like they did have the name up at the top, which I liked. But their social media links, I was like, you're super active on Blue Sky now. Super active. Like one of the more active of the people I know. Yet on their website, there's nothing about Blue Sky. There's nothing about, hey, join me here in the conversation. That's a mistake. You know, what I did this week, one of the things is I took a piece of paper and I wrote down a few key accounts that we have. And I said, okay, what's missing? New Media Lab is missing stuff. Okay. Pour Over doesn't have anything, but I don't think it's going to. I think it's all going to fall under New Media Lab. I don't think this needs its own thing. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But I looked at a few of them and realized, okay, some of these things can be burned. We're not doing anything on them. There's no social activity. And fans, they may stumble across it, but is that doing anything for us at all? Leaving things like a ghost town on Facebook or Instagram doesn't really help anybody. So I made a list of the ones that I think we should be focusing on, a few different things. From there, go look at the website. Does it have updated links? Are the links working? How do I integrate it better in? Like one of my favorite things on the Southgate Media Group pages, the ones that the shows I ran, like Nuff Said, has an Instagram account. And when we were really active with it, which that one I didn't throw by the wayside, that one's a lot of fun. But I integrated the Instagram thing onto the page. So you'd go onto the page, you'd see the logo, the description of the show and the hosts. Then you would get like, here's the newest episode. Here's some fan favorites. Here's a link to like a radio of all the things. Also there on the side was Instagram, like join our socials and Instagram. I made a grid that had pictures from our Instagram account. So as you put new things on, it would update that, always making it look fresh. I love that. We used to do that with Twitter as well. We used to have a scrolling Twitter on the side. I used to love that. I pulled all that because we don't use it. Once again, going back and looking at it and updating things. Oh, Chelsea's here. Hi, Chelsea. Let's see what you're saying. I'm working, so I can't be super active. I get that. But I was thinking of breaking my series into separate pages on my website instead of having them in one books page. I think that would help each series have its own feel on the website. Yeah. Basically just make a landing page for each series. You don't have to be, like you said, super active, you know. For super active, we'll talk about you, Chelsea. I would do the fine tuning, figure out where you're going to post, make that what you get when you interact on the website or the newsletter, right? And go back to that simple idea of, here, I can even share this. Go back to that simple idea of your sharing being 2 different areas minimum and a few times a week, and then think about what you want to post. So here, I'm going to see if I can share my screen, which I know I can, but let me see if we can read it. Boom. There you go. So let's say you do Instagram and you do Facebook. Instagram, post between 3 to 5 times per week. Facebook, post between 1 to 2 times per day. So there you go. Now you know you can make a schedule. Now that is like optimal. That's what they say the algorithm likes. But let's say you're like, hey, I can't be super active. I know I can pull off 2 to 3 times a week. Well, then make your Instagram and your Facebook the same post 2 to 3 times a week. But schedule it out. Figure out, okay, Mondays, I know I'm always going to do an excerpt from my book. Wednesdays, I'm always going to do uh, some kind of pro writing tip. Fridays, I'm always going to do a behind the scenes thing. 1, 2, 3. There you go. And do it through Meta so it goes to Instagram and Facebook. And when they make it active, they're beta testing it. You're going to be able to do the same thing from Meta to Threads. Now you're in 3 places. At least then you know, hey, I pre-thought it. So that's 3 posts. What is that? Yeah, that's 3 posts spread across 3 different platforms. And then if you think about a month, there's 12 posts total. You could sit and schedule out 12 posts and look like you're super active across social media every month, but do it all like Sunday morning, get up, have your coffee, and make up 12 posts. But you could make 3 that are consistent. It's like what I do on I'm going to remove that. Stop sharing. On the Writers Accountability group for Four Horsemen, I have a system to it. Now it's Facebook only, and I do 3 posts a week. Well, it's actually 4 posts a week. 3 that are right out of the accountability guide, and I have a system for those. And then the 4th one is a writing prompt, these words out of the accountability guide. And once every other month, I go in and I make, let's see, that'd be 3, 6, 12. No. I make 16 posts roughly, between 16 and 20 posts, but I'll do it on like a Monday morning. Takes me about an hour, maybe. I'll make all those posts all at once, schedule them, and then I don't have to touch it for 2 months. That's it. But they're the same kind of thing. But you know what? They get interaction. People write on them. People respond to them. It's doing what it's supposed to do. Now, if I wanted it to go to Instagram, if the accountability group had an Instagram, had a Threads, I could schedule it so it goes to all of them. Well, I don't really want to do that. I want to keep it specific to that group. So there you go. There's a way to manage it, Chelsea, where you do one day a month, a couple hours, but figure out these are the things I want to post. The rest of the time can be sharing. So like we have a Black Friday sale going on right now with Four Horsemen, where you get 50% off this weekend through Monday, any of our books. I mean, this is an amazing sale, right? Every one of the authors should be in there sharing our posts and then writing posts of their own. This is the weekend to do that. The rest of the time, we post stuff 2 or 3 times a week. Share it. Share it when it's appropriate. When you look at it and you're like, oh, there's a sale that applies to me. Or, oh, they're highlighting one of the other authors. I'll share that on my author page. Like, hey, here's another author from our group that's really interesting. You guys would be interested in this. That content is good for you. That's the sharing. Sharing is caring. Sharing can be very beneficial to you. So you've got your 2 posts or 3 posts. Oh, I'm going to go with 2 posts in a week that you're making. Make it easier on you. Your 2 posts you're making, and then I'm going to make sure I share 2 or 3 other posts. I'm going to pull 1 a week from Four Horsemen. I'm going to pull 1 a week from another author from Four Horsemen that I follow that could be the same person all the time, could mix it up, which is what I prefer. And then I'm going to pick another one, which is like funny book memes or bookstore of the week, and I pull from their thing. There's a thing on Discord where you can get an app on Discord that says question of the day. Maybe that's it. You just add a question of the day. With the podcast groups that I run, I've not been as active with those, mainly out of frustration for lack of response. I've tried all sorts of things, and as it's gone on, it seems like people just have a lot of apathy. And when I don't post, they get upset. When I do post, they don't interact. But I used to do question of the week, and question of the week was a lot of fun. It used to get a ton of responses. I stopped doing it because I went probably 3 months of doing it every Friday and getting 0 response. And I'm like, I don't get it. When I stopped, it was like, oh, I used to love those. Yeah, but nobody's answering them. So there's an easy one for you. There's a third piece of content. Share it from somebody on Discord. Like I said, they have one that you just put in. Put the app on. It will every day ask a question of the day or every day ask a question of the week. It's easy. And if you can't think of those questions, Google it. Go to Google and say, what are great engagement questions for my social media? And you'll get people that have listed out 100 questions. Pop them in there. There's 2 years worth of content for you. You can't schedule 2 years out, but it'd be awesome. Okay, what else did you say here, Chelsea? Also been thinking of doing video newsletter that I can transcribe into email newsletter. I love it. But the videos could be available on a Patreon or something with additional content for Patreon members. I love everything about that. It's beautiful. You could also, instead of doing, because if Patreon doesn't work for you, you could also do that as your Substack. So let's say it's $3 a month, they subscribe to Substack. You have your video newsletter. When they subscribe, they get a transcription and they get bonus content. That, if you've got people that are following you and liking it, they're very likely to jump in on that. Or at least hopefully. But video newsletters are great. I actually like, so my favorite one that I get, I've talked about this before, is old school. It's called The Creative Independent. It's just interviews with creative people. It looks like it was done on an old dot matrix printer, this email that you get. It's got a swirl that's dot matrix. Then it just has a description of the person, questions and answers. I think it's coming out once a month. It used to come out weekly, but it's my favorite. I love it. It's so old school. It's just real basic. I know that they're transcribing interviews. They're either doing a video interview and transcribing it or an audio interview. I hope they're doing it as video because then they can take that content and later make it into something else or chop it up and use it on something like TikTok. I don't know. I never see them advertise that. Maybe that's part of the charm. I don't know. But I love what they say. I love their interviews and I love the look of it. On other ones, they have that either Patreon only content. Easy Allies is a good one. They're a video game. They started out as like a video game podcast, video game webcast. They started a Patreon page and it was free. And you could get their podcast once a week where they talked about video games. And then they were like, hey, people were liking this. They were only letting it live on Patreon and marketing it out from Patreon, which is hard, but it was working. But then they built up a following on their Facebook page. They got a really active Facebook page, built up this following, kept talking about how you could listen to the podcast on Patreon. It drove people to Patreon. Then they opened up tiers. And when they opened up tiers, it was like they took this same kind of thing and they said, okay, what's a show we could easily do outside of this, but they only pay for? And they did things like playthroughs. So if on their show, they were talking about the new Tomb Raider and they went through like all this stuff. They did a playthrough, not on Twitch, but on Patreon that was, you had to be in that tier to be able to see it. If you went to the next tier up, maybe you got 2 shows. And one of the hosts was like, hey, I want to do my own show. I'm just going to talk about, the Superman and Lois TV show and my love of that. They were like, great. If they get this tier, you get that host doing their show. Now, I'm not saying you have to build it that way. I'm saying that is an option where you have that extra content. With Nuff Said, I mentioned Nuff Said, we had one successful run with Patreon. Not real successful, but it worked. We were doing our show weekly, talking about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and then we talk about a little bit of Marvel news, like what's coming up in the movies and that, and joke around. And then when Daredevil came to Netflix, we said people wanted us. We had fans that were writing in saying, "Are you going to do the Daredevil show?" And we said, "Sure." But first, we did it as a Patreon only show. So then pay $5 a month. For $5 a month, you got access to our show, Podcast Without Fear, I think we called it. No, Men in Red Tights. That was the name of our show. We also had one called Podcast Without Fear, but that wasn't me. That was one of them in our network. So yeah, we had Men in Red Tights, and we went through every episode of Daredevil, but you had to subscribe to get it. We did. We picked up subscribers. What was funny is we had one that was obsessed with it, obsessed with that show. And we decided at one point to put it out there publicly. So we said, okay, our model will be, it lives on Patreon only, but since we don't have that many subscribers there and we have a couple thousand on our regular feed, we'll put these shows out, but after 6 months, they go free. Not a bad way to do it at all. And it worked, other than nobody paid for Patreon, but this fan was obsessed. And he was like, "Oh, are you going to do that for all the series? Oh my God, I can't wait to hear you guys do it." And we dropped off. I mean, not funny for him, but we had a lot of contact with him. We talked to him. We buddied up so that he knew that, like, hey, we're just people trying to work too. Like Chelsea said, I'm working, so I can't be super active. That's where we were at. We were like, look, we all have day jobs. We all have whatever. So we can't be as active as you would like. You would like us 24/7 doing our thing with you. But when the Patreon is bringing in $10 a month split 3 ways, that's not doing it. Okay. So back to what you were saying, Chelsea. I'm sorry I diverted there. So video newsletters are really good. I told you I love that one that is analog, but I also get them where it's video and literally in your inbox, boom, it pops up and the video starts playing live. That's my favorite. The ones where you don't have to click on it and go to YouTube or anything like that. If you can get it so it's an auto player in your email, that's the best, because you open it up and it starts playing and you're like, oh, cool. And the really good ones will have a transcription underneath it, or a button that says click for transcription. I think Astonishing Legends does it that way. They do, one of their things is video, and then it says underneath it, if you'd like a transcription of the show, just click here. It's like, yeah, I love it. So that is not a bad way to do it. But what I would consider is the difference between Patreon and, say, Substack, or do it both places and figure out what's going to work better for you. Because Patreon can be tricky. You've got to cut through the noise. And there's weird things with Patreon too, where people that are active on Patreon, it's not always just your fan. Like if you're doing it just for your fan, I'm going to more likely suggest trying it on Substack. If it's like, no, I'm trying to grow audience, I'm trying to build a Patreon thing, there's things you have to do, like you have to subscribe to other Patreons. You've got to put in. What they say is you can do $1, but who do you have to pitch the buck into so that because the idea is then the other patrons recommend you to their patrons, right? I've tried Patreon a bunch, and we've done things with it, and we've had subscribers, but minimal. That could be me. I could be making a huge mistake with all of it. I know I made a huge mistake with our YouTube channel. Huge. I would almost like to just burn everything to the ground and see if I do that, I'm not starting over. It's all over. So I'd rather just leave it and let their flags wave. Chelsea, I haven't tried Patreon or Substack. I think I'll look into Substack more now. I love Substack. There is a pour over Substack. Here, I'll get you the name of everything. I know I have a slide I share, but I'll put it on here. There we go, Substack. So I have 2 of them. I have one called Mic Drop, which I post about podcast stuff. I have not been as active, but I am absolutely on the brink. I think first of the year, you're going to see my Substack game go way up. You're going to see some of my other stuff go by the wayside. We're plotting it out now. And then the other one is Pour Over Marketing. Pro for Marketing has its own Substack. Now, right now, I've been experimenting with it, so it's not solid. But here's what I love about it. It will be solid very shortly. What I'm going to do with my Substack is a couple of things. I'm going to do exactly what I talked about. I'm going to do transcriptions of episodes or segments of the episodes. I'm going to share video content on there from the episodes. And then I'm going to write an occasional article because I'm in the middle of writing this book and I'm starting to see, hey, I could take this piece of this chapter and make that into a short thought as a blog post. Actually, the blog post is longer. On Substack, I'm going to make them more like a newsletter where I do little chunks that lead you other places where the blog might be that's more detailed, or the book, or whatever. But I am going to be using the video content. We've been creating all this video content, and I've put barely any out there, barely any on YouTube, other than what's streaming live, barely any anywhere else. We also have a thing you're talking about, Chelsea, you're talking about like having this like Patreon and this extra content. You know, a lot of people do really well with Ko-fi, Buy Me a Coffee or Ko-fi, whichever one you want to use. Ko-fi's the more popular one now. So we set one up. And I have one for Southgate Media Group. I'm debating. I might ditch that and just do one for this. But what we do there is, hey, if you throw in a couple of bucks a month, every month, you get some video content that's exclusive to that I'm not going to release other places. You know, you can have fun with these things too, like Substack. You could say, here's my Substack. Here's where I'm writing my newsletter, right? If they're paid, they get to, you know, if you're you're a guitar player, okay, when you subscribe, you get to hear me do covers of songs. You get to see me do live writing for Substack subscribers only. We do live streaming of me actually writing based on your prompts. It's an author under glass. Things like that add real value, but they don't go anywhere else. And I know as a creator, you want everybody to see it. That's the hard thing. When we did Men in Red Tights, it was like the show was really good. It was really fun and really good. And the people that listened loved it. But our audience was this big because we put a wall up before it. That was hard. Then when we made it free, we're like, but we just killed the value on it. Because now people just expect all of our stuff to be free. And that's great. But here I am, 56 years old, trying to, tape money together because I create all this great content that people like, but they don't pay. They don't feel any value to it. What I love about Substack, I'm going to go back to that, Chelsea, is it's almost like newsletter, blog, social media. So when I first got on it, I became aware of it all within 1 week. I was doing a consultation with an artist, and he said, what I really want to do is explore this idea of Substack. And I said, oh, I don't know what that is. And he said, well, I kind of do. It's like a blog. And at the time, I was using iBlogger and some other things. And I was like, oh, let me look at it. And I went in and I was right away was like, oh, this is actually really cool. And I saw it had the paywall that you could add. I was like, hey, this is cool. Very easy to use. So I set up that mic drop one just to experiment. Immediately, I got suggestions of some other podcast blogs, newsletters. And one popped up. It was the end of the year, a couple of years ago. One popped up that had like, things to do in 2023 as a podcaster. Top 10 things. I was like, oh, cool. I had written a list very similar as a post, different suggestions. It was interesting. So I was like, oh, that's cool. I tagged them in it. They shared it with their audience. I shared theirs with my audience. Now, my audience was nowhere on Substack, but I had it linked to my MailChimp, so it went out to a couple of thousand people. Their newsletter, and it said, hey, I put it like a personal note. I know you guys watch my thing or listen to my thing. I found this really cool Substack I thought you'd be interested in. Let's talk about it. So what ended up happening is I ended up communicating with the two women that write the newsletter, and I had them on my show. Then they had me featured in something on their thing. That's Substack. Patreon, I don't get that. Patreon, you get people following you and subscribing to you, and yeah, you can seek them out. But on Substack, it was more like, hey, I like what you're doing. I'm going to share it. I'm sharing it to people that read my newsletter, that read this kind of stuff. If every author in Four Horsemen had a Substack, they could share each other's things as they come out. Would that be a lot of sharing? Sure. So maybe you only share people in your genre, or you say, once a week, I'm going to share a different author's thing. Great. Do you think that would grow audience? Absolutely. Should every podcast have a Substack? Yes. Should every author have a Substack? Yes. Even if you're just sharing a short paragraph. I've talked about this before. I'm a big fan of Wilco and Jeff Tweedy, the singer-songwriter from Wilco. And he has one called Starship Casual. And I subscribe to the free one. You get a paragraph, maybe a little bit more. Sometimes it's just his thoughts. Sometimes it's like, oh, here's our tour. Or once in a while, hey, we're having a sale in the Wilco shop. Okay, well, I've given you permission to tell me that. Oh, by the way, I just got an album from that because it came in Starship Casual. And I was like, oh, cool. Told me what this album was and why it was kind of cool. And I was like, hey, I don't have this. And the way to get it is right now. They're going to change the cover. Right now, I could order it and get it. Then he has, and he puts that out. He was super active. It was like every day. I think he's down to like once a week or twice a week now. That's fine. I still love it. But then he has a paid thing. So for $5, you get something extra. And for him, there's a lot of songs that he does a lot of covers, and a lot of covers that get released, like big covers. But those cost money for somebody to do a cover, but not on his Substack. It's a private channel. So he'll just take his guitar and he'll sing One by U2. And the only place you can get it, you're not paying for it necessarily, you're paying for his newsletter, but he'll put it on like, hey, here's a gift for you guys. And it's him singing One. Amazing. If he said, hey, I'm going to play D&D with the rest of Wilco, it's only on my Substack. There's a live link. If you subscribe, you get the live link. You watch us play. Guess who'd be paying for the thing to watch him play? I would, for sure. But then I could take his stuff, which I have done, and share it to my friends. It's like I said, it's like social media. You can make comments. You can share it. I've made connections. And it hasn't been bastardized like even LinkedIn, where I posted a thing this week that I was open to work. So I was like, I'll pick up some extra side stuff, some coaching, consulting. And I got inundated with people. First of all, they were all acting like they were headhunters. They were going to help me. Then as soon as I got in conversation with them, it was like, well, I'm going to sell you. If you buy this from me, I'm going to sell you this. You'll have success. And I'm like, every one of them, garbage. Substack, I haven't gotten that. So far, every connection I've had has been honest. It's been cool. I don't think it'll get bastardized. I don't think it can. Watch, I say that and somebody will figure it out. So look into Substack, Chelsea. It's really good. Plus, you can do all the tricks. The more proficient you get at it, you can figure out how to make the SEO work, how to share it on your website, how to put SEO in it so it has like dynamic tags and alt text and all that stuff. You can do all the stuff that really successful newsletters and blogs have. Or you can treat it like your newsletter, share it with your fans. If you write cool stuff, do interviews once in a while. Other people are going to share it. You're going to grow your audience. My audience is small on there because like I said, I haven't done a heck of a lot with it. I have 31 subscribers on Pour Over Marketing. 17 of those came from people discovering it in the app, not from you guys. Came from people that have the Substack app, saw it somewhere else, followed it. My mic drop is down to 11 subscribers, but that's because I'm not posting on it. That's okay. 11 is not a number. So I have to do something with it and grow it. We already said that. So back to the central idea. Look at your stuff. Look at each aspect of it. Make a list. This is what I have done. Make a list and make like almost a Venn diagram. What crosses over with what? Where can I reuse stuff? Where is my audience? This thing that I'm doing, I'm writing down for each of these people. I have what their social media is, how many followers they have, when was the last time they posted on it. Okay, that's important. Or if there's a note regarding that, like one guy I can think of was kind of active, has a pretty good size audience, and then he stopped. And the week that I looked at his, this week when I looked at his, he posted. So my data makes it look like he's been active for 5 years, when in fact he took a nap for 5 years. He did a whole bunch in the beginning, built a decent audience, and then let it sit. And then this week, the day before I look at him, he finally posted something. And I'm like, okay. So in my notes, it says that. Like, hey, he's back, but he may not be. Let's see if there's any consistency. Consistency is king, right? But I'm doing each of those things. How many followers do they have? When did they last post? Do they have a newsletter? Do they have a website? What are the notes on those? Is it broken links? Where do they have the things? So that I get a good idea of where fine tuning can be. For me personally, it tells me then where my fine tuning is, because when you interact with somebody else and you see the flaws and you write them down, you can then go to your page. You can then look at your stuff and say, that bio that they have is great. The one that I hated looks exactly like mine. Okay. Do something about it. Change it. If you don't know how to change it, if you don't know what to make it like, once again, the easiest thing in the world is to Google it. How do I optimize my Instagram bio? You'll get a million answers. The top few, probably the ones you want to look at. You're going to get HubSpot. You're going to get Sprout Social. You're going to get, SEMrush. You're going to get those as your top hits. But guess what? That's what they do, is they analyze these things and they'll say, okay, the ones that are most effective did this. Is it 100%? No. But if you follow that, you're at least hedging your bets. You're going to make yours at least a lot better. The last time I did this with Twitter way back, I'll never forget it, because I realized we had maybe 70 different Twitter accounts because of all the podcasts, and I couldn't get the podcasters to do much with it. So I managed all of it. And I typed in like optimizing your bio for mine, my personal one. And I was like, oh, this is a good idea. Have a link tree on there. So, because you can't have links in Instagram, but under your bio, you can have your website or whatever. And a link tree was the smartest, because I could say, find my website, other socials, blog, and podcast by clicking on my Linktree link with an arrow down. You click on that, it immediately went to Linktree. Linktree, you can actually manage that too. That's another one I look at and I go, hey, how do you make it look good? How do you make it say everything you want it to say? What's the user experience there? And what are the good ones? Look at link trees until you find one that you're like, ooh, that's a really good one. Or type in examples of excellent link tree sites or link tree accounts. And you'll see them. And then you go, oh, I can make mine look like that. I had a really good one when we went to Writers Row the last time. I made a link tree for Writers Row. And I was able to put a skin on it. It was awesome. It was a free skin that Billie Eilish had made and put up. But it just looked like water and bubbles, but like big. So it was very, if you just glanced at it, it looked like it was just sitting there. But if you paid attention, it looked like it was kind of slowly moving. It was super cool. I took the Billie Eilish skin, said use it for free, put it behind it. made the colors pop off of that. It was an awesome looking link tree. It was a one-use link tree. Cool. So anyway, I did this. I did this to my personal one. I added the link tree. I learned like what you can put in there to trigger searches. So they didn't have hashtags in the bio, but the way you put your words in the bio actually does work on the searches. So I did that. Then I looked and I was like, oh my God, 70 accounts. Not one of them was optimized. I didn't create link trees for every one of them. I created them for a few. Then I told the podcasters, create a link tree. Here's what you do. By the way, I don't think any of them did it, or at least so few that I don't remember anybody doing it. That's another issue. If somebody points out something you could do to really improve things or a flaw in what you're doing, actually look at it. Even if you disagree. Apathy kills creativity. It kills marketing. You're never going to get to that integrated part if you haven't put all the bolts and nuts holding the engine in place. Right? You're building a car. If your engine isn't secured with the right bolts, it's going to fall out. You're not going anywhere. Sure, in the beginning, it's a frame, but you got to build the frame. You got to solder it. You got to put the nuts in and the bolts in, and you have to put the hoses in, and they have to be good hoses, and they have to be the right hoses. This is your marketing. Think about it that way. And once again, it doesn't have to be your business. It could be just you. I've got a flaw with my Facebook right now. I'm trying to figure out, I have to make a professional one. But I've got so many people that follow me from the professional side on my personal one that I could switch it to a professional account. But then I've got all my personal pictures in that. What do I do? Am I going to have to go through and download 10 years worth of pictures and get them out of there to make the most out of the personal account? And then what do I do when I set up the personal account? How do I manage that? Because people are going to ask to be in there. And it's like, well, I want to be able to post pictures of us doing stuff, but it doesn't necessarily belong on my professional one. You know, a great example was with the election. I went crazy because I was so upset by what happened. I'm not going to get into it, but I was very upset and I posted things. I was very careful about what I posted. In fact, you believe it or not, I was very careful, but I posted a lot because I was trying to let people know, here's what I think, and this is not right. But that should have gone on my personal one. It should have had nothing to do with my professional one. My professional one, you know what, if Chelsea, let's say you and I disagreed. You voted one way, I voted the other. Doesn't mean we can't be friends. Or it doesn't mean we can't be professional friends. I would still do everything I could for you. Right? I mean, I would treat you like the gold that you are. But personally, if we are on opposite ends of the spectrum, why are we friends? Because we're not. And that's something you have to think about. Like, how do you separate that? And that's what I'm worried about right now. Like, how do I separate it? Because I really don't want to post a lot of personal stuff, but I want to be able to get in conversation. Like, I had friends writing from other countries, and it was like, hey, that shouldn't be for people that just want to hear my marketing tips or just hear my goofy thoughts on Wicked or whatever it is, right? Once again, I've got to curate my social media in a way, and I have to really give it thought. But you, as the creator in that, should look at all your stuff and say, where can I fine tune it? Where can I optimize? What's going where? And how do I pare it down? Chelsea, you don't have a lot of time because of working. Okay. So how do we simplify that and bring it back? Now, I do consulting on that. I'm not just speaking to you, Chelsea. I'm speaking to people that watch this. I do have a couple of different things. I have Southgate Small Business, where I will consult and coach on your marketing. We can go through your social media. We can do all this stuff, but I help you fine tune it. I help you with that stuff. You can get a free session. Just go to the website, southgatesmallbusiness.com, and sign up for a free session. And I'll actually answer questions and figure things out. And then if we're a good fit, if you actually need to hire me, we can go with either single session things, or a lot of people end up going, I want one of your programs. We're going to do an overhaul of my stuff. Okay, 6-week program, overhaul your social media, get you in order. And then you never have to think about it again until the next time you have to think about it. I told you algorithms change. I also have, and I've been promoting this, I have Dreaming Big Coaching. Okay. Let me make sure that I said that right. Yep. DreamingBigCoaching.com. And that I help you achieve your goals. Reach your dreams. So if your goal is to fix your social media, you don't need me for that. We do that through Southgate Small Business. Or you can do it here. It doesn't matter. But Dreaming Big Coaching, if you have a dream, you have something you've wanted to do, you've wanted to quit your job, you've wanted to make a movie, you've wanted to write a book, or you've written a book and you don't know what to do with it. You've wanted to start a podcast, you've wanted to transition into something. That's what I do. I do success and transition coaching to help you get there. And right now, this weekend, 25% off. I had to remember what it was. 25% off. So it doesn't mean you have to pay this weekend. It means you have to book your free session this weekend. If it turns out this is a good fit and you need a 1 session, you need 8 sessions. I've had people that are interested in doing like they'll say, well, what does it cost for a year? Okay. Whatever it is, if the free session has been booked during this weekend, that thing happens at 25% off. So if you think about it, if I have an 8-week course, it's like you're paying for 6 weeks. It's a great deal. It's a great deal. I don't do that often. I mean, I might do certain discounts here and there, but this is the biggest discount I've ever offered. It is literally through Cyber Monday. So if you want in on this, go to dreamingbigcoaching.com, go to southgatesmallbusiness.com, sign up for a free session, or write to me. You can write in these notes. You can write on my Facebook. You can write on New Media Labs thing. I get all of it. You can send me an email to rob@smgpods or Southgate Media Group at gmail.com and say, hey, I really want to do a free session. How do I book this? Great. We'll get you all booked. I would love to help you out. All right. Got to go. I'm going to be on another podcast. I've got Third Best Southgate, which is streaming on the Capes and Lunatics Facebook page. So, or you can, if you follow me personally, you can find it on my Facebook page. And otherwise, I believe it streams to YouTube, but I don't know if he does it live there. But it's the Third Best Southgate. I'm going to be on for the next hour. I am out of here. Have a great weekend, everybody. I hope your Thanksgiving was awesome. Keep the party going. Keep eating that turkey till it's all gone. Have a great weekend, guys.